Hey guys, it's Miss Ferguson. Today we're going to be doing a lesson over similes and metaphors, but before we get started, I'd like to go over the technology, assessment, modification, and the standards that we're going to be using for this lesson. So for the technology, we're going to be using a PowerPoint. The assessment will be a bell ringer and an exit slip. The modifications will be the pictures that are on the PowerPoint. And also, if you have trouble taking the little quiz that we're going to have in this lesson, you can work with a partner. And then the standard for this lesson is demonstrate understanding of figurative language, word relationships, and nonces in word meanings. So now that that's out of the way, let's dive into the PowerPoint. So this PowerPoint is over similes and metaphors. The learning targets for today are going to be I can identify what a simile is, I can identify what a metaphor is, and I can identify the difference between a simile and a metaphor. Now we're going to take some time and answer our bell ringer. Our bell ringer for today is what do you think a simile is? And what do you think a metaphor is? Just write it in your own words. Keep it on your desk. And then as we go through this PowerPoint, you can take notes on the same sheet of paper and see if you got it correct. Did you correctly? Now let's move on to what is a simile. A simile is a figure of speech involving the comparison of one thing with another thing of a different kind, used to make a description more empathetic or vivid. A simile also uses like or as to compare two things. An example of this is as brave as a lion, crazy like a fox. Now, what is a metaphor? A metaphor is a figure of speech that, for rhetorical effect, directly refers to one thing by mentioning another. A metaphor also compares, but without using like or as. An example is, he is a shining star. The snow is white as a blanket. So just like the simile, it's still comparing, but it's not using like or as. Now we're going to watch our video on what are metaphors.
What are metaphors? A metaphor is a figure of speech used to describe one thing by suggesting a comparison to another thing using symbolism. In other words, a metaphor often uses one thing to represent the traits of another. An example of a metaphor would be to say, Bob's tentacles are twisting vines. Often, people get metaphors confused with a similar figure of speech, the simile. A simile makes a comparison between two different things using like or as. An example of a simile is, Orville is as bald as a bowling ball. Metaphors are commonly used in literature, music, poetry, and popular culture to add vivid descriptions, imagery, and emphasis to language. He was burning up. She is a night owl. Taste the rainbow. You're probably familiar with more metaphors than you think. You ain't nothing but a hound dog is one of Elvis's most famous metaphors. And Rihanna wasn't being literal when she sang, lightning strikes every time she moves. Poet Carl Sandburg used metaphor when he wrote, the fog comes on little cat feet. Sometimes metaphors are overused. Then they become cliches. Have you heard of any of these cliched metaphors? He is the black sheep of the family. Don't open a can of worms. Remember, metaphors describe without using the words like or as. To use metaphors in your writing, think creatively and use interesting and unique comparisons to craft your descriptions. Here are some more examples of metaphors to inspire you. Alonzo is a walking party. Ella was so happy she floated across the room. The monster's roar was a clap of thunder. Just remember to use comparisons that people will understand. For example, if you say, Fred was an intergalactic explorer who hadn't had a proton donut in weeks, your audience may be confused. Now you should be ready to try writing some metaphors of your own.
Now, here are some more examples of similes and metaphors. A simile, like we said, is a comparison of two different things using the words like or as. And an example is on her first day of school, Jane was as cool as a cucumber. A metaphor is a comparison of two different things that does not use like or as. And another example of that is Noah has a heart of a lion. Over here on this chart, we have the difference between similes and metaphors. It gives us definition, purpose, a quick memory tip, and more examples. Now you can get together and work with a partner, and we're going to go online, and as a class, we're going to test our knowledge and see if we know the difference between similes and metaphors. Everyone did a great job on the quiz we took together as a class, but now let's do our own. Make an exit slip. Make one of your own simile and metaphor, and get creative. You can make your own up of each. It can be anything, but remember, similes compare using like or as, and metaphors compare without using like or as. Now that concludes all of our lesson for today.